Okay, that hard, sticky thing you pulled off, that's part of the skull, right? And this pinkish white stuff is the brain?
Yes. Might I suggest an alternative?
No, no, listen to me. We can't turn back now. I've got to know what they're thinking.
Have you considered talking to them?
All right, sew that back on. We'll give it a try. Well, Brent, I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk about your books with me. You could be writing or gaming or a ton of things that are a lot more fun than this, but I am so glad it worked out for you to be here.
Well, thanks for having me, Peter. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Now, I know I told you that I'm a huge fan of the Night Angel trilogy, so this is a special kind of nerdy treat for me. I've been extremely stoked to talk to you. I'm wearing an adult diaper right now in case I pee myself a little bit during the interview.
I am more glad that I can say that we are not doing this over Skype then.
Okay, so here's the thing. Since reading these books, I've been dying to pick your brain about some very specific aspects that I've not read or heard you talk about anywhere else yet. The religious aspects of the world you've created in the Night Angel trilogy certainly have parallels to our world, but the most striking parallel is that between the one God religion and Christianity. There seem to be dozens of virtually direct quotations from the Bible, depending on the translation you might look at, countless parallels to biblical stories and teaching woven into your story and themes. One of the most moving to me was in Shadow's Edge when Logan, the unrecognized yet rightful king living among criminals, declared Lily, who is a depraved and broken woman, to be innocent and all her crimes paid for. Very reminiscent of John chapter 8 and the encounter between Jesus and the adulteress. And Logan also used the phrase, as far as the east is from the west in that scene, taken from, I assume, taken from Psalm 103. So the Night Angel, and that's just one example, it's all over the place. This trilogy strikes me as being written by a guy who's spent a ton of time in his Bible. So I'm curious, does the Bible have personal significance to you, or do you find it useful as source material for some reason, or?
Both. The Bible, of course, has pretty deep personal significance to me because I'm a Christian, and I'm also a person who's struggled pretty strongly with my faith, and I've been an atheist, and so some of the most interesting things to me are how people with differing beliefs will approach the same set of circumstances and come away from those with totally different conclusions about the way the universe works, basically.
Yeah.
And the Night Angel trilogy really has the benefit of struggling with the deep and most intensely kind of personal, most universal themes that there are there. Because here I've got guys who are assassins. The main characters are assassins, and when you have main characters who are assassins, unless you want to write sort of just a fluffy kind of James Bond story that's really fun and they kick ass, now that's great. At some point you have to have your characters, or at least I thought I needed to have my characters wrestle with what is the meaning of this work, and what is the meaning of life and death, and why do we do this, and are we reasonable human beings after we do this? And Logan has to figure out when he's in the hole, you know, what is my humanity, and who are these people, and am I different than they are, and am I better than them? So I put all these characters in these really, really awful places, and then I tried to make them respond in the ways that they would.
Yeah.
So as well as I understood where each of those guys was coming from, that's kind of what I did.
Yeah. So and I could see that each one of them was kind of playing out kind of the natural inclinations of whatever their philosophy of life is, whatever the answers they found to those big questions of life. We see them kind of get played out as they wrestle with the problems you put in their path. Now, with all the Christian themes and symbolism and stuff, this trilogy, I want to be clear, never strikes me as like preachy or having some kind of obvious Christian agenda or something like that, but there's so much biblical allusion present that I'm real curious about your thought process as you chose what themes to focus on. What themes would you say you consciously insert into the trilogy that would be taken or inspired from biblical content? Or do you have any favorites that were inspired by biblical content or themes or philosophy that made its way into the trilogy?
Well, it is hard to narrow it down, I guess, because I spent 6 years of my life on these books.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of thought processes that went into it, and of course it is more fun as an author to make other people pick out themes, but clearly redemption and sacrifice kind of stories are really move me, and so to tie in with that and with your previous question, I think whether or not you believe the Bible is true, the biblical stories, and obviously there's hundreds of stories in the Bible, really touch deep and meaningful parts of human psyche, and I think we've lost some of those, especially because public schools, separation of church and state has sort of figured we can't even study those things, not even as literature. We have to just be hands off with those. And so you have these powerful stories that have soaked, permeated Western history. And I feel like we've lost a lot of those. So in some ways, it's really these are deep things that I can tap without people being like, "Oh, you just ripped that off from here," So I can touch deep things, and I hope move people in interesting ways that haven't been touched for a while in popular culture.
Yeah, and I see that in also your construction of the fantasy world itself. Instead of going with some of the stereotypes of fantasy, like there's an ultimate good force and an ultimate bad force, Star Wars or Terry Brooks' Shannara books, or a polytheistic world being established. Well, you break convention there. You've got a world that primarily practices polytheism, but you portray this worldview as being a lie through the eyes of the protagonists, while subtly drawing attention to followers of a one-God religion, placing their faith and moral character in an uncommonly positive light. Usually, the one-God adherents in fantasy are the hypocrites, the jerks, almost as if the author has like a chip on their shoulder of some kind. Now, was that a choice was that a convenient opportunity to break convention, or did you have any other motives there, or what was your thinking there?
The first aim is to make really good fiction.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people who write that, anybody who believes anything, they turn out to be the hypocrite. It's become so easy and so trite.
Yeah.
And kind of ridiculous. So I think it becomes bad fiction.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little harder and a little different to see people with fable or with foibles and failures trying to live out their beliefs, and sometimes failing at that, but still good people. Which would sort of describe a lot of the religious people I know. Who have lofty ideals and sometimes do not live up to them. And yet have lofty ideals. And there's something ennobling about that struggle to live up to your ideals, especially when things do not go well. The character of Count Drake has awful thing after awful thing after awful thing happen to him, and for no apparent reason. And to see him struggling to hold on to his faith is I think the kind of struggle you don't get to see very often in fantasy, and that's why I chose to do it. It's different, and it's something that we can easily relate to. Where if you have a pure polytheistic society and you're watching somebody struggle with their faith to their household gods, it's totally removed from us as readers today.
That's
it's
true.
Like, well, what is that? That's nothing to me. They're obviously fools for bowing down to these things on the mantle. Well, that doesn't engage you as a reader. So I think it does a couple of things for me all at the same time. And it does it as I'm going along in the narrative,
Yeah.
is the most important thing to me.
Now, you place so much...
I think it was, I always forget who said this. Somebody I studied in college. It was a Roman philosopher, Heraclitus, or Tertullian or something.
You're going to sound smart no matter what you say, so that's all good.
Yeah. well, this way when people point out that I picked the wrong guy, at least I've hedged my bets there. So, he said that literature should delight, then teach.
Yeah.
And,
yep.
And that's the correct order.
Yes. Yes.
So my first motivation was always to delight.
Yeah.
That these be books that move fast, they're interesting, there's lots of high tension stuff always happening, being thrown at you. And then secondly, it was that teaching aspect, which is different than preaching, certainly. It's showing things truly.
Yeah.
And showing things honestly.
Well, in that light, with all the Christian thematic content that's painted in a positive light in your books, I'm going to ask you a really dumb question. I don't know, maybe it's not dumb. Did you consider approaching a Christian publisher at any point? The ones that would be like, yes, bring us your F-bombs and rape scenes, bring us your disemboweled corpses.
Oh, yeah, you'll have to direct me to those ones. I thought about it. Especially in those dark nights of the soul when it seemed like nobody was going to pick up my book.
Oh yeah.
In New York, but I knew that I rejected it very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Because I knew I couldn't tell the stories I wanted to tell.
Yep.
For a Christian publisher, and I haven't read a lot of Christian fiction, especially not in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, I did, and everything was always so tidy.
Yeah, it's pretty tame.
And that just did not match up with my experience of life,
yeah.
Period. It was like, oh, okay, the guy can be a bad guy, and he's doing whatever he wants, but as soon as he has this conversion experience in chapter 22,
oh, jeez,
then he's great for the rest of the books, and he never does anything wrong. He might attempt to, but, then he walks through the rest of the books. And maybe the fiction has moved forward since I last read it.
Not much.
It was in my mouth. And so I was like, no, these are whores and killers.
Yeah.
And they murder people for a living. They drop F-bombs.
Yeah.
And they sleep with people for a living. And you can't really tell that, whitewash that story and have anything left.
Yeah. Now, given that you knew you were going in that direction, and by the way, I love the dark and severe content in the trilogy. You use it purposefully and well. I don't see reading your books to be in any kind of conflict with biblical Christianity. But, obviously some would say that the dark content, the language, violence, the themes of sexual abuse would draw a very different reader than the biblically based content might. One of the content might be too much for one person. Did you ever see, did you or anyone else that was with you on your journey to being published ever see these elements as being at odds with each other, potentially turning off one or both of the demographics that might enjoy these books? How did you navigate that?
Well, the first person to see the possible conflict and turning off of demographics of those elements was me. So I definitely realized that by writing a story like this and writing a story this way, I could be shooting myself in the foot and here I was a guy who was just trying to get published.
Yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
You hope the bottom of the heap will pick you up and push your stuff out the door and give you $2.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. Where you're like, come on, just somebody read this book.
Yeah.
So it certainly occurred to me that my own writing and my own choices might be influencing whether I could get published at all.
Mm.
But somehow I just thought I definitely struggled with some of those things, like, okay, how much do we use various curse words?
Yeah.
How graphic do we go on this content of both the violence and the sexuality, and then even the stuff that I find most horrifying about the books, the sexual abuse of children.
Yeah.
And so I knew I was walking a lot of tightropes on there. And I knew that some people have different sensitivities to these things.
Oh, yeah.
My wife worked with kids who've been sexually abused.
That's right.
And so knowing some of the stuff is real,
yeah,
like her sensitivity to that kind of content is way higher
Oh, yeah.
than some 12-year-old kid who reads my book. And
Sure.
it's not a book for 12-year-old kids. They just breeze right past it because they have nothing real in their own life to connect, sexual abuse to like the devastation it lays for an entire life.
Yeah.
So they can kind of read past that and just blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Great book. Where an adult who's worked with people who survived sexual abuse might be like, whoa, that was really intense for me, and I had a hard time getting past it.
Well, now, what about the flip side? Did you or anyone else along the way was there a voice anywhere in this process that said, the Christian themes are a little too strong, can we scale those back so it's accessible to a more general audience?
Strangely enough, I never had anybody say that to me.
Oh, that's cool.
I had my agent talk with me, and he's not a Christian, and he picked out some of the themes, and he thought it was great. Hey, you're dealing with fantastic love, like love and sacrifice,
Yeah.
and that resonates with me, as a human being.
Yeah.
And so, from that perspective, I didn't have anybody ever push back against it.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, I could certainly see that the people who picked up on those themes and didn't like what I had to say about it would just not buy the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like here, I was trying to sell a book, which, as it turned out, did commercially really, really well.
Yeah.
And it took me 2 years to sell it. I mean, my agent, who's a very good agent, it took him 2 years to sell it. And so I don't know if I have no idea if people just missed it, or if they read it and they got it and they didn't like it, and so they chose not to sell it.
Yeah.
Those kind of things. It's like getting yourself into a conspiracy theory hub.
Sure. Yeah.
is no good. And I think I've met some of those editors who turned me down, and they seem like fantastic people. So,
Well, what about
I think it was just more the normal, like, oh, we don't think this book is going to sell that great.
Yeah. How about the readers? What have you been hearing from either Christian or non-Christian background readers regarding the Christian elements in the trilogy?
I have been a little surprised that more readers didn't pick up on it, actually. Just because, I mean, I think I didn't. I think those struggles come up naturally with the characters as they're going elsewhere.
Yeah.
But I've certainly had militantly atheistic fans, who are like, yeah, whatever. Or I've had fans who are self-described pagans, who really enjoy my books. And actually, the most negative comment I've had was from a disgruntled Christian.
Of course. Good grief.
Who thought the books were unjust, or the ending of the book
Oh my gosh.
was unjust. So, which is fine. I think he was a teenage kid, and he posted it on my forum, and lots of people posted back. So,
leave it to the freaking Christians. What the crap?
But I think a lot of that might have to do with because I've been an atheist and am now a Christian. I think I understand the mindset of both sides, how both sides approach problems in kind of an interesting way, in an intimate way. And when I depict problems, moral problems in the book, I try to do so in such a way that respects the reader's integrity.
Yeah.
Whatever their background is. It's sort of like the Lord respects us enough to give us free will.
Yeah.
I should respect my readers enough to do the same.
Yeah.
So you could read the book and think that the believers in the one God are just self-deluding.
Yeah.
Or that whatever you want to believe. And I try not to push that really hard and be like, no, this is the way. This is what's true metaphysically.
Yeah.
I leave those questions open, and I might slant things a bit just because I think you sort of can't help it.
Yeah.
But I do my best to let you don't have this like conversion experience in the book.
Yeah.
It comes face to face with the one God.
Yeah.
And you really are true, and I'm going to change everything now. Like that doesn't conform with my experience of reality. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, if you could give a wet willy to one cliche of fantasy world religions, what would it be?
It would be the Catholic Church is the root of all evil. And I'm not a Catholic, but the big bad is always the church.
Oh, yeah.
And Philip Pullman makes me want to vomit, not for his sins against Christianity, but for his sins against fiction. His books and again, a lot of Christian authors or really ecologically driven authors, or there's an objectivist author.
Mm-hmm.
What they do is they put here's my moral belief about the world, and I'm going to cram it down your throat.
Yeah.
For 600 pages, and there'll be some story thrown in on the side.
Yeah,
you should hail me as a great literary mind because of this. and I just want to kick those people to the curb. And even when I've read some of those books where I totally agree with everything they have to say, it just makes me sick.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, here's the 5 pages on why you should recycle, kids.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Nice.
Back to the story. Now the commercial break is over. It's not what I believe is the purpose of fiction, I guess.
Well, and that's what I appreciate so much, and this may be part of the reason why you notice that a lot of people haven't picked up on lots of the themes. As I was reading them, I don't know where I fall in terms of as far as how familiar and in depth I study the Bible compared to the average Christian, but there was a lot of stuff in there that I was like, the average mainstream Sunday Christian is gonna miss a lot of this stuff. That's why I say this is written by a guy who's really spent some time in his Bible, because there's just some parallels there. I want to, next time I read through it, I'm considering taking a pencil and making Pater Fransen's annotated version of the Night Angel trilogy, because there's so much there. And I think we can acknowledge that fantasy stories are mostly just fantastical, escapist entertainment. As you said, entertaining comes first, and then something valuable along the way. But for good or ill, in popular entertainment, that's also the place where many develop their views of the world, maybe just by osmosis. So what of real-world value, if anything, would you like your readers to absorb by reading your books?
Oh, man. See, this is a really good question. And that's why I'm going to dodge it.
That's
the reason being, I don't think that there are shortcuts to the right answers. Mm-hmm. So I think if you if you got the annotated version and you just studied, okay, what was this Brent Week's book about?
Yeah.
Give me one paragraph.
Yeah.
That you wouldn't get it.
Yeah.
So I think the reason that Jesus used stories in his parables is that stories make you think about things kind of over and over and over, and stories live with you.
Yep.
And I hope that my stories do that in some ways, and I hope that I wrote them well, both on an artistic level and on a moral level, so that these stories will live with you, so that you can on a second read be like, wait, this is what he was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or on remembering it, be like, oh, this is like that time when Kyler did this, and that's what this struggle in my life is like. I don't want to give myself too much credit here, but I think we understand ourselves through stories, and in my own life, some stories have done that for me, have crystallized my moral thinking, and so for me to just spell out this is the lesson would kind of short circuit that.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, hey, for a dodge, that was a pretty good answer. I mean, like
Thanks.
that's more than the Wachowski brothers gave. I mean, they ditched the whole commentary to their trilogy. They're like, no, it's just whatever you want it to be, and
Well, there was good reason for them to do that.
All right, before we go, I want to touch on The Black Prism. That's your recently released first book in the Lightbringer series, which you're working on now. Are you exploring similar themes and drawing from the Bible in any way again, or does this series have a different tone or philosophy driving it?
The Black Prism does address things at a slightly different level. The Night Angel books, like I said earlier, are addressing these terribly visceral questions of life and death and killing and what will you do to survive. And the Black Prism is a little bit different than that. So these characters, their struggles are a little more perhaps rarefied in some ways. I mean, but perhaps more relatable to who don't have jobs killing people. So I'm again dealing with questions of belief and unbelief and human dignity, human depravity.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of have a kind of overarching Catholic Church kind of set up here in the world, which gives me all sorts of fun things to play off, both
I'm sure,
and with all the other fantasy novels. The church is the big guy. But it's not a straight like play against that. It's more of a, how do people in an organization like that has way too much power, maybe in the world, but is full of people who are trying to do good, and some people who are not trying to do good at all.
Yeah.
How does that exist in the world, and how does that affect the world? So that's sort of a sidelight, but an interesting one.
Nice.
So the themes are a little different in this one, and I think they're sort of still emerging, of course, because I'm only finished one book of the three.
Sure.
So there's a lot of meat, and there's probably a lot that I don't want to give away because because things are more fun when they club you over the side of the head in book 3 and you didn't see them coming.
Yeah.
The author said, "Hey, look for this in book 3."
Well, Brent, thank you so much for talking to me. Like I said, a huge treat for me personally, and let me just check here. Yes, I did pee myself a little bit. I'm not sure when that happened, but just take that, just take that as an expression of love and appreciation for you and your work. I'd love to have you back sometime down the road to talk more about the Lightbringer series, but in the meantime, I want to congratulate you and wish you tons more success. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Really have enjoyed my time with you.
ChristianGeekCentral.com